All right, it's Wednesday night, and I got to make sure I'm plugged into all the right things. I think I am. So I believe my microphone's working. It looks like the camera's working because I can see myself, and I believe I can hear myself. And that means we're ready to go on a live Panther-Lair show. That should be an interesting one. As always, look, transfer portal season is always going to be an interesting one. And that is, even though the transfer portal doesn't open for basketball until next Tuesday, it's already rolling right now with 3 Pitt players going into the portal yesterday. We've been talking about this a ton, of course, talked about it on the Morning Pit this morning. The message board has been lively, let's say, over the course of the last, 24 hours and even longer, longer than that, because message boards are always lively like that. The transfer portal is only going to make it even more wild. Look, I mean, you see all the news. We don't need to really recap too much. Obviously reported and confirmed yesterday, Brandon Cummings, Papa Amadou Conti, Roman Cialepa going into the transfer portal. There's a lot to talk about with those 3. 2, not so much a surprise. 1, very much a surprise. Not exactly what we were expecting, but that's how it's gone down. I think the transfer portal season always has surprises. Last year, we'll bring Jim in a minute and see what he thinks. I feel like every year, whether it's football or basketball, there's always been some guys who go into the transfer portal that we don't expect to see them go. And some you don't want to lose. Some, it doesn't matter if you lose. Some you probably usher out the door. But some of those guys are surprises. And whether it's a big loss or just a medium loss, surprises are surprises. And we're in the early portion of the transfer portal season right now. And actually, I'm going to bring Jim in here and we can start the conversation here because Jim, we're in the early part of it. Like the portal opens for basketball next Tuesday, but guys are starting to announce their intentions or be reported of their intentions. And just by like sort of virtue of how it works and the sequence of things, it's all losses right now. Like nobody's joining your team. They're only leaving your team right now. And I was thinking about this earlier, or maybe I was talking to somebody about it. I forget. Football, basketball, this early sequence, early portion of the transfer portal window, it's all losses. And I think it piles up and it creates a pretty negative feeling. And some losses are worse than others. But because there are only players leaving your team right now, it feels like nobody wants to be on your team right now. And nobody's going to play for your team. And there's not going to be anyone on your roster next year. And it's entirely possible that nobody from this year's roster will be on the roster next year. But I think because it's only losses and departures, it feels worse than maybe it is. And I'm not minimizing the Roman Cialepa departure. We'll talk about that in a second. But do you know what I mean, though? Like that there's this portion early in the portal window and right before the portal window where all guys are doing is leaving. And that creates a certain kind of vibe.
Yeah, and I think that definitely happens in football, too. I mean, you look like in the immediate aftermath of Pitt losing the bowl game and guys started to leave. And, they always kind of come in sequences. And it usually seems to happen like, oh, there was meetings. And, after the meeting, that's, when everyone came to a decision. So I don't know if it was coincidental that all 3 happened yesterday, but it might have been. That might have been whenever everyone kind of, had their talks with the coaching staff and, let their intentions known. So we'll see what else comes. But yeah, like in football, it's like, okay, like, Rasheem Biles left it, like everyone else is leaving, Kenny Johnson, blah, blah, blah. And you start to panic, but then you realize like, oh, the portal's not even open yet. Like we still have work to do. There's still a lot of things that can happen. And, obviously now we're going to go on the offensive. So I think that, that's common of everyone in college sports these days. It's like when everyone leaves, it feels terrible, but then there's still a whole nother side of it too.
Yeah. And you have those days, and we've seen it in football too, where there's like 3 or 4 that get announced in one day. And it just is like boom, boom, boom. And it feels like, oh God, everybody's going to go. Nobody's going to play for this team. And you know what? The opposite happens too. Like June official visits, right? Where it's just like, whoa, commitment after commitment after commitment. This is amazing. I can't believe all these guys want to go to Pitt. This is incredible. And so it works the other way too, where you have where you just have all this news going in one direction, it feels overwhelming and feels like that's what everything is, when it's, more nuanced than that. And look, more guys are probably going to go, right? What's our count at right now, Jim, as we look at the roster? Do you have a running tally? Should I write it down?
I think it's one guy with junior eligibility, and that's Noyes.
Okay.
4 guys with 4 second-year players.
Amari, Makari, Kirari, and Henari. They should all rhyme, right? Omari, Makari, Kieran Mullen, and Henry Cody Lau. Right. Okay. And
3
that's
freshmen.
it.
And yeah.
And then the 3 incoming guys. But in terms of returning players, so they have 5 scholarship players with eligibility remaining who have not been reported to be leaving yet. Maybe it's too early for this, but over under 2.5 of these guys are back on the roster next year, if you had to guess right now.
I would say over. I mean, I think some guys might just come to the realization that, there's not going to be much else out there. And, from Pitt's point of view, they still need depth. They're still, they still probably want some of these guys just to help fill out the roster, mainly so they don't have to go out and sign 13, 14 guys. So, I could see a couple of these guys sticking around. I mean, if you're Henry Lau, like, you came here with the understanding that, yeah, I'm going to redshirt, like that was part of the deal. So, like, you would think someone like him, like, this was all part of the plan. Nothing has deviated from the plan yet. So
right.
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I think the 2 big ones at this point, and if you could call them big, are, Noyes and Amari, because they're the only 2 guys that really saw significant action this season. Again, they haven't been announced yet. I mean, they have the option to return, and, but the portal stays open till April 21st. So, just because they didn't say anything yet, just because, nothing's happened yet, that doesn't mean it can't change. I mean, I think that's the big takeaway from this week is anything can change and everything can change at a moment's notice in college sports. You could feel confident about what you have coming back. You could have a good sense of, yeah, I think we could build around these guys, but then things change. I mean, it could happen in the flash of an eye. And I mean, even going back to football, I mean, I think for the longest time, you and I both said, like, yeah, Mason Heichel, of course he's coming back. Why would he not come back? But Mason Heichel didn't really announce he was coming back until like the very end of the portal season. So, I mean, you could feel confident, you can hear what you can hear, but there's always that underlying unknown that's always out there.
Yeah. I do think, along those lines, and we don't have to go too far down this road. I definitely think we all know, if we didn't know before, this offseason has definitely shown that even something that seems like it's absolutely a complete 100% done deal is never really a complete 100% done deal until it is, in fact, a 100% complete done deal, by which I mean a formal, somehow somewhat binding, past the point of no return announcement. Like we thought, like you said, I mean, Mason Heichel, we thought 100% done deal because we were told, yep, 100% done deal. But time went on and time went on and time went on, and you got into the transfer portal window and you start thinking, maybe a 100 is more like 99, and it's still, heavy favorite. I don't like, obviously, you related to the Jeff Capel situation. It felt like 100 until pretty late in the process when it started feeling like 99. It's like that win probability chart, like the win probability chart for Duke UConn. Was sort of, wherever Duke was the Jeff Capel getting fired until, for some reason, somebody tried to keep passing the ball. Somebody made a poor decision and showed anyway, getting too far down the road on that one. And then all of a sudden the win probability switched and it was keep Jeff Capel. But I digress. 3 guys announced yesterday. I would say 0% surprised about Brandon Cummings and Papa Amadou Conti, right?
Yeah, I mean, both guys sustained season-ending injuries. I mean, I think for a while Papa was on the bench cheering on the team, but towards the end, I didn't notice him on the bench. That's usually not a good sign for a guy that's planning on returning if he's just not going to come around to games. Brandon Cummings, I think right after he got hurt, he might have been at the first 1 or 2 games. Then he stopped coming around, and we started hearing whispers that he was done with Pitt, and I think both sides were moving on. So I don't think anything was surprising about those.
Yeah.
I think we were almost kind of counting on them at that point. But I mean, obviously, what happened a couple hours later was not, what anyone expected. I think there's a fair amount of confidence from Pitt's side of things that Roman Cialipa was coming back. I think Roman kind of indicated that he was happy at Pitt and, kind of good with whatever they were about to give him, revenue, NIL wise. And, but things change. I know, Pitt made some coaching changes. He might have looked around at the situation and saw, I don't know, maybe there's more out there for me. I mean, that can happen. And that probably seemingly did happen. And, now as a result, Pitt kind of needs to build an entirely new basketball team for next season.
Yeah. Yeah. You knew there would be departures. You knew they'd have to do a lot in the transfer portal, but you thought you'd at least have that piece to build around. And that's probably, well, no, the worst part of it all, of Roman Cialipa going, is that it sucks because I thought it was going to be fun to watch him develop here. Even if it was only for one more year, it was going to be fun because it was fun to watch him develop over the course of his first year when he went from unplayable, maybe he should just stick to rugby, to like, damn, he's good and fun to watch and kind of tough and physical and intimidating on the court. Like, I was really looking forward to seeing at least one more year of him playing here and developing with the team and developing under the coaches and continuing to get better and, just understanding the finer points of playing college bat. It was going to be fun to watch, and I was looking forward to that. And it sucks that it's going to happen. He'll grow and develop. It's just going to be somewhere else. And, I guess, there's also kind of a, with all these guys, whether we're talking, probably not Cummings or Papa Amadou Conti, maybe Cialipa, maybe anybody else who announces they're going in. It's always possible they could come back, right? I don't think we can completely rule it. Didn't Papa Amadou Conti go into the transfer portal last year?
He did. And he came back. Sean Lee was announced as going in, but I don't think he officially actually ever went in on the football side. So, I mean, guys could come back. Guys who think they can get a certain number might go out and look around and be like, oh, I'm not getting that number, and end up coming back. So, I mean, again, that 100% is more like a 99, but it seems likely we'll watch Roman Cialipa develop elsewhere. It's being framed by certain sources with all three of these guys that they were somewhat of mutual decisions. I think we would probably buy that, agree with that on Cummings and Conti. Cialipa is a tougher sell. I put up a post on the message board a little bit ago about maybe some questions about, his commitment and whether he was committed enough to merit the investment it was going to take to keep him here and all of that. I don't know. And maybe both sides just came to the decision, you know what? Not going to be able to do this. It'd be unfortunate if that's the case. You'd like to think that in this situation with the relationships that exist, things could be figured out. You could find a way to keep him on the team. I think he was willing to take the money they were offering him. I don't think that's what it came down to. It's hard for me to stomach the idea of a mutual decision between these two because Pitt really needed him. He was supposed to be maybe like, I keep saying like phrases like, oh, they were going to build around him or he was going to be the foundation. He wasn't going to be like the star player. The offense wasn't going to run through him or anything like that. But to have him back with the potential he showed, the ceiling he has as a bit of linkage, not even linkage, because who wants linkage to a 20-loss team? It's disappointing because you'd like to think that they could figure out a way to get it done and keep him here under the year, which I thought was a priority, Yeah, I agree. And I think it's going to be a tough sell, especially to Pitt fans. I mean, just reading the message boards and Twitter that this was a mutual decision. I'm gonna just say, even if there is some merit and truth in that, and that's possible, I don't know if anyone's really going to buy that line of thinking. And it's even tough for me to buy that line of thinking because, like you said, he's not going to be your best player, but he was going to be a starter. Like he was he was 20% of your starting lineup that you knew you had and you knew you liked, and you invested a lot of time in him I mean, like his name started to surface about a year ago at this time. We started hearing whispers.
Yeah.
There's this Australian kid. He's really good at rugby, and he could play in the NBA someday. He's this great untapped potential. So we started tracking him, and like it became this ongoing saga. And I think Pitt had trouble getting him enrolled and getting him in the country because of visa issues and all that. So like they put a lot of time into him, and they stood by him. Like he started all 33 games this season, and there was times in November where it looked like he should not start another game against Division I basketball. So I think there was a lot of effort put into getting him here, getting him into the country, developing him a little bit, and to the point where he was a pretty good player by the end of the year. So like again, I mean, if the program wants to frame it as a mutual decision, that's one thing. It's just gonna be tough to sell that to anyone, and I don't know if anyone's really buying it right now.
Yeah, it's hard. And now you have a whole nother piece to replace. Like we talked about, you got to get a point guard, you got to get a center. At least the power forward spot was settled. The 4 was taken care of. You didn't have to worry about that. You have more money to invest, right? You have the Cialepa money to invest, so that's good. But you didn't have to worry, and you were probably getting a pretty good price on him, and you recovered. That position was set. And now you have to address that as well, because there's not an option. Like it's not like you can keep any of the guys on the current roster and they're going to step into that spot. I don't know if there's what's the incoming recruit's name? Why am I blanking on this? Foster. Like, I mean, does Foster project as a 4? I mean, like, is he going to be your guy there? I don't know that he's necessarily ready for that. So now you've got this whole other spot to fill where you really tried to you should have been in a position where you could dump a bunch of money into a point guard, dump a bunch of money into a center, dump a bunch of money into a shooting guard. Now you also have to dump a bunch of money into a power forward because you have no other options on the team. Like if you manage to hold on to Noyes, okay, well you've got a shooter. You got Felici coming in, you've got Foster coming in. You've got if not starters at some of these spots, you've got depth at some of these spots. Now you don't have any of that at the 4, and God, it just creates a huge hole in the roster.
It does. It truly does. And again, there's nothing really you could point to say like, I know this guy's going to start next year. Like I think in my head, like I had Roman penciled in at the 4, Felici at the 3. Noyes is like a 6th, 7th man. Foster is a 6th, 7th man. Probably same with Omari. And looking for 3 starters. Now you're looking for 4 starters. And the one guy you're assuming to start is still a true freshman that you haven't really seen play yet. Like, I think Felici's good. I think that's a real ranking. I think he's legit. But again, you're counting on a freshman as like, okay, like this is like the one known commodity we have right now. So again, it goes back to like the topic we had at the beginning. Everything seems so bad right now because nothing is in place. I mean, obviously that can and will change, but I mean, the pressure to get this right is immense. I mean, they have to put together a good roster. I mean, I think, I was writing, the 3-2-1 column this week. And I think one of the lines I said was, there's only so many seasons that can end with a statement from the athletic director. Like, I don't know if next season can end with another vote of confidence. Like they have to get this right. They have to nail a lot of things down in the portal and put together a pretty good roster that could win probably 22 or more games. Like that's the goal. That's the expectation. And right now, looking at it, they're far from 22 wins.
Yeah. Okay. And if the next 4 weeks are going to bring any level of encouragement, it could have been, oh, good. They got like a legit good point guard. Okay. Oh, good. They got a legit good center. This roster is really coming together. I think they're in good shape. Now it's like, yeah, but now they still got to go and get a power forward. And it's unfortunate. And I don't know, maybe you can find a Blake Hinson, just a stretch 4 who can go out there and shoot or something like that. But it's all right. Let's get to some comments and questions. Marlon Barnes Truther says, can we bring back Positivity Week? I don't think I can do this anymore with basketball. I don't even remember when Positivity Week was, Jim. Do you remember that? Was that on the live show or was that just me on the morning pit?
I think it extended
all the time.
I think we got it going on the live stream one night.
During basketball season?
Yeah, but I don't remember why. Or no, I think the basketball team like had an off week. Like
maybe. Oh, okay.
They played Saturday to Saturday, so there was no midweek game. So there was nothing to really bring us down. We were just coming up with topics and things
good
like
vibes.
that. Yeah.
We were living, laughing, and loving. You know, it was good vibes only. So I don't know that we can bring that back right now. So there's not, maybe in a couple weeks we can, once they start bringing guys in. John Jingleheimer Schmidt says, I guess he's retweeting Marlon Barnes Truther's comment. We could spend an episode complaining about the direction of the program, which we will. I'd rather hear about how the offensive line is going to surprise people and get at least 2/5 of them will get drafted. Well, only 3 of them will really be draft eligible this year, right? 3 of them are seniors. Is Nintino Olivieri, he's a senior, right?
Yeah.
Or is he a junior? So him,
senior.
Ryan Baer, and BJ Williams.
Isn't Kendall Stanley a senior?
Oh, is he a senior now too?
I thought he was like a 2-year guy, or was he a 3-year, like when he transferred?
Let me look.
But I mean, I guess like Ryan Coretta's like.
I know Ryan Coretta's not. Yeah. Oh yeah, Kendall Stanley's a redshirt senior too. So you're right. So 4 of them are draft eligible. I don't know about the draft. The draft's a long time away. Like, I mean, you're talking about the 2027 draft. I do think, like, from what we heard, and I think Jim, you Pat Narduzzi mentioned this on yesterday, that a few of the offensive linemen had winning grades in the scrimmage, right? He mentioned Coretta. Was he the only one he mentioned, or did he say somebody else too?
He did mention Coretta, and it's by all accounts, he's having a good camp. I mean, Pat Narduzzi did his little jab in there that, like, yeah, we'll be better at center this year. I mean, I think anytime someone transfers away from his program, the guy that's replacing him is going to be better. But I do think there's some level of confidence in there with Coretta, and he got thrown in there at guard last season, but I think he is a center more by trade, so I think that's going to be a more natural spot for him. I did ask Pat about Kendall Stanley because I think that's an interesting one, and mainly because, last year, it was like, oh, he played right tackle at Charlotte. Then at Pitt, he was kind of working at left tackle, working at left guard. And when Jeff Percy got hurt, he was playing left tackle. But I think there's something to be said for him to just have one position this year. And I think that could be beneficial for the line. I think him at left guard, I think that's a good spot for him. And I think he started the Georgia Tech game last year. And I think that was Pitt's best rushing game of the season. So I don't think that's coincidental. I think there's some they're trying to recreate that over a full season. So I right now, like, I don't have any questions about who the 5 starting offensive linemen are. I think last year at this time I definitely did. I did not know who was going to start, but I think the same 5 group that we've been seeing during camp is probably what's going to be out there on September 5th.
Yeah, I feel like pieces were moving around last year at this time, whereas they do seem more settled. It does seem like they knew who they want. They know who they've got in place. And because we haven't seen guys shift, we've seen guys pretty much locked in where they are. And you're right. He said Coretta was the only offensive lineman with a winning grade. But there have been rave reviews about Kendall Stanley and how he's done moving into the left guard spot. He actually started like 7 games last season, which I kind of forgot. He started a whole stretch, 7 in a row: Florida State, Syracuse, NC State, Stanford, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Miami, according to Pro Football Focus. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, Percy was out a good bit of the year.
He was, and I guess that'd be the only other left tackle, right? It's not because they had Coretta at left guard after Gouveia got hurt.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, he started, from Florida State through the Miami game. He did not start against East Carolina, but he started the other. That's 7 games in a row. I think there's potential here. I like this group. Baron Williams. I mean, come on, guys. Like, you're seniors now. Like, it's time to be really good. And if not now, then when? Then never. I think Coretta can be can be an upgrade at center. I think they were pretty down on how Lyndon Cooper played last year. Everybody seems to be raving about Kendall Stanley, saying he's doing well at guard. And then it's Nintino Olivieri. And I think we've both said that we're cautiously optimistic about a guy who was pretty successful and pretty effective playing in the Ivy League, translating that to playing in the ACC at a pretty important position. I do know, I had one person tell me the first team offensive line did not give any sacks, did not allow any sacks in the scrimmage on Saturday, which that's always good, unless it reflects poorly on the defensive line. How do you balance that, Jim? This is going to be the topic on tomorrow's Morning Pit. But I mean, how do you, like, if I tell you that, if I say, hey, Jim, first team offensive line did not give up any sacks on Saturday, are you saying, wow, that's good? Or boy, that D-line must suck.
I mean, like, I think just anything when it comes to spring football, it's that way. And I mean, there's been 2 scrimmages. There's going to be the blue gold game. So, like, yeah, you're always encouraged whenever the offense is putting up all the points, but you're wondering, how they get all those points. Who messed up on defense. So, I mean, I think just kind of balancing like what we've heard from the 2 scrimmages is that the offense came out gunning in the first one and they were making plays. And Pat Narduzzi kind of said the defense was in position to make plays. They just did it. And it wasn't so much mistakes. It was just, a little tweak here and there. And they kind of cleaned those things up on this past Saturday. And it kind of felt more like a stalemate. It kind of felt like the offense was driving the ball, but not picking up big chunk plays. The defense was kind of, keeping them in front of them. So it kind of felt like a good battle. So I don't know what you want to hear at this time of the year. I mean, I don't know if you want to hear that the offense is ahead or the defense is ahead or, both of them stink. But right now, I think there's a pretty good sense that the offense feels ahead of where it was last year and that the defense is always just kind of going to be what the defense is. So, like, I think in that sense, that's probably a positive thing.
Yeah, given how much we all know the offense needs to improve, if the defense, like and we've said this a million times, we sort of give the coaches the benefit of the doubt with the defense at this point. It's been good enough to win for the better part of the last 8 years, at least, if not 9 years. So the offense is really where the focus is. So if the offense is having success, I think that's generally a good thing. I also think when you look at scrimmages like this, you try to consider, well, where are we most confident that they're good? What position group would you say you're most confident about with this team?
I mean, I'm starting to come around on the secondary on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think they have 2 pretty good safeties that are going to start. And I think they have 4, maybe 5 cornerbacks that worthy of playing time.
Yep.
And I think that was like the one spot in the transfer portal where they went out and got guys where they didn't have to. And I think they just really, so I feel confident that the secondary is probably going to hit the ground running. There was a little coaching change there, but it's like Harlan Barnett, like he's the guy that like helped create this defense. So like, if you're going to have anyone replace Corey Sanders, that's the guy you replace him with. So I think the continuity there is going to be strong. Offense, I don't know. I'm starting to come around that like Pitt has some pretty good running backs. I think Ja'Carrion Turner is really good.
Yeah.
I think Simquan Smith is going to be able to make plays, and I think just having Lavelle Wright, just having the option of a 220-pound running back that's competent, that can run and pick up a 2nd and 3 when they need it. I think he's capable of doing that. So I mean, like if those are 2 spots right now, but like I could talk myself into pretty much after those 2. I would probably lean more on the defense. Like I could probably talk myself in the linebackers, the defensive line. More of my questions always kind of remain with the offensive line, wide receiver,
right,
that kind of thing.
Right. And so I agree with you. And the secondary is what I was thinking of first when I was thinking of like what positions do I think are the strongest or do I feel the most confident about? So I think when you look at like scrimmages like this, you say, okay, what are you confident about? What do you feel good about? Feel good about the secondary. Okay. How is the offense doing against those guys? And if they're making plays against the units that you feel are pretty good, I think that offers more encouragement for the offense than like making you feel bad about the defense. Does that make sense? Like if there's a group you feel confident about and the other guys are beating them, I think that's a net positive. Then like, I'm not going to sit back and say, maybe I wasn't. Like, I'm still really confident in Cruz Brookins and Josh Carrier and Shadarian Harrison and Sean Lee Jr. and apparently Zion Ferguson getting some shout outs. So I think, I think that's one way to look at it with these scrimmages. And I think that comes out good because everybody knows the most important thing is for this offense to improve and for Mason Heitchel to play well and for the offensive skill guys to make plays. And so if they're doing it against that secondary, then you know what? I think that's a good thing. And I think it reflects well on the skill players. It reflects well on the quarterback and it reflects well on the O-line if he's having time to make those plays. Now, it does seem like, and they said this after the first scrimmage, I think it was the case in the second scrimmage too, that there were more plays to be made for the defense. Like the safeties and corners maybe had their hands on the ball a couple times and weren't able to really make the plays. So maybe it's not quite the domination that it looked like from the offense. But overall, I think you can find some pretty encouraging bits from the scrimmage, just if you look at it from that perspective of like, is Mason Heichel taking a step forward? Is this offense a little more explosive? Is this offense making plays?
Yeah, and we talked to Josh Garrier on Tuesday, and like he's going to step in and he's going to be a starter this year. And I think somebody asked him, like, who is giving you the most trouble, and you expected him to say a wide receiver, maybe Boosie Turner, Max Hunt. He said Mason. He said the way Mason plays is really giving me trouble. He can really move your eyes around, and he does those kind of things. And I was encouraged by that comment. Like if the quarterback and the safety are playing these mind games, and I think that speaks well to what the level of football that's happening at at these scrimmages. I mean, we'll get a better look at it at the Blue Gold game. And I still don't really know what that's going to be. Like, I mean, like, no. So we're going to be there. There might be a stream. They might play real football, or they might just do what they did last year and play thud. I don't know. So like, I'm interested to see it, but like, we're hearing all these things. We're coming up with all these hypotheses of like, what can we make of this? I'd like to see a little bit of it, but I don't know how much we will.
Yeah, not really. I still don't know. Like you, I don't know what that's going to look like. But we'll be there. Have you seen the pictures from the parking lot outside Acrisure Stadium where they're setting up the stage and stuff?
I was like, okay, I get why they're not having the spring game. There's like it takes up the entire gold parking lot, and apparently we're not in the press box. I don't think.
Wonder where we're going to be.
I think we're in the East Club. Is the East Club the side like closest to PNC Park, like opposite where we sit?
The open end zone is the south end zone. So the East would be on the same side as where we sit. No, you're right.
Like
I get close mixed up.
Yeah, closer. Across. So I think we're going to be
visitors side.
Correct. I think we're going to be over there. So I don't know. It's going to mess me up.
Yeah. Well, they can find us into club, I guess. Really looking forward to that. And I have no idea what that's going to look like and what we're actually going to see. Super chatter. Swin Boyd says, any info on punting and kicking? So first scrimmage, the word was that the punters were bad. Pat Narduzzi said they were below average. Second scrimmage, I think they were actually pretty good. And I think the kickers were pretty good too. Like the consensus seems to be coming out of, this second scrimmage that Pitt has 2 legit kickers and 2 legit punters, which like, I'm not sure if they missed. I think I heard they didn't miss a field goal in the second scrimmage, which is a good thing. Good punters, good kickers. Seems good, right? Is that, I forget if Narduzzi said anything about that yesterday, but what'd you pick up there?
No, I watched a little bit of like, we get our small practice window. I watched punting. I was impressed. Like those guys were actually booming the kicks. Like I think whenever like they had to angle some, like, some of them didn't look the greatest, but like if they just have to get a kick off, I think both of them have strong legs. That's Gabe Russo. And I actually don't know how to say the other guy's name. Tajirna.
Oh, right. Came on
Tajirna.
Tijerina?
I don't know.
They should have a pronunciation on the website. They don't. Really kind of dropping the ball there on Cayman.
Yeah, but
Cayman, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think there's room to upgrade the punting. I think there's, the option there. And I think both these guys have some pedigree. They have strong legs. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, the one thing that has struck me in the past 3 seasons with Pitt special teams is there just seems to be more of an emphasis on it, on just getting it right, more coaching, more hands-on coaching, all hands on deck. And, now that you hired a special teams coordinator, so it's not just, Andre Powell in the corner, talking to a few guys. It's like, it's a team-wide thing whenever they go for special teams at practice these days. And I just think that added emphasis all the way around should help. I mean, obviously it helps to have good kickers and punters, but your coverage and all that stuff needs to be good too. So I think it's a little more buttoned up than it used to be. So I don't know. We'll see how that translates on the field.
Did you see Mike Prefer had like, I don't know if it was mic'd up or whatever you would call it, where they it was on social media. Did you see this thing with him video they put out?
I saw the tweet. I didn't watch it.
Well, at one point he said, I mean, he's talking about this and that. And at one point he said, one of the good things here is that the support he has from the top, from Pat Narduzzi. He said they spend more time on special teams than he kind of said it like anywhere else he's been, but definitely anywhere he's been in college. So maybe that just means they spend more time on special teams than they did at North Carolina. But he seemed genuinely impressed by the amount of practice time that was dedicated to special teams. And like we watch it, it doesn't feel like they're spending more than they have in the past. So Pat Narduzzi maybe has always done it that way, and it's just new for Prefer. But I thought that was interesting, that for him, a guy who's been coaching special teams for 2 decades, he says, we're spending more time than I ever have.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, like I said, I felt the difference like in the past couple of seasons. There just seems to be more of an emphasis on it. And just the fact that Pryfor's even here, like the fact that they even hired a special teams coordinator is kind of, reflective of that.
Yeah. Chaggy says, happy buyout drop day. It's a perfect day to fire Jeff Capel. It's not too late. Yeah, I think everybody's operating the April 1st being the day the buyout drops. I don't know if that's true. I don't think it matters. Gerard says, letting go of Gilbert Brown is significant. He was a good recruiter and a Pitt guy that helped build the program as a player. I don't know. Shoot, I don't even know what Gilbert Brown did at Pitt. And that I don't say that as a snarky way of saying he didn't do anything. I don't know what his job was. He was an assistant. Was he a full-time assistant? I don't think. No, he was like a staffer. I'm sure he was important and he had a role with the team. I think he was the main point of contact with Roman Cialeppa. I don't know. Now they're letting him go and they're bringing in Ronald Ramon. So that's a connection to the old days, but I don't really. I don't know. I don't know if Gil Brown being let go is why Roman Cialeppa left. I don't think it is. It's a weird move. I don't know what's behind it. I don't know who initiated it. I don't know who initiated the firings or dismissals or whatever you want to call it of Tim O'Toole and Jason Capel. But changes are being made. It's serious. It's a new day in Pitt basketball. I was in San Francisco over the weekend and for a couple of days. Voodoo IPA wants to know what all did you see in 3 days of San Francisco? We did a lot. We jammed a lot into a few days, and that's a great city. Jim, you've been to San Francisco, haven't you?
I have. Twice. Yeah, it's pretty cool out there.
Yeah.
I think the time I went, like you said, the weather was great when I texted you earlier. I went in August and it was freezing. Like I didn't expect it to. Like you go to California, you see the palm trees, you get excited. We went to a Giants game and I thought it was weird, like walking around town all day. Every vendor had like 7,000 hoodies on their tables. I'm like, why are they selling hoodies? It's California. It's August. And like, I don't think I made it to the 5th inning of the baseball game. It was so cold.
Yeah, I mean, it would be especially cold there with the wind coming off the bay and everything. That's a very exposed stadium from what I could see. But yeah, our weather was great. And we think we have hills around here. No, San Francisco has the hills.
Lombard Street.
We did. We walked up to the top of it, walked back down it, and then walked many more hills to get many more places. But I like it a lot. It's a fun city. I would like to go. I would like to go again. WMS Hornets says, take a shot for me, please. No, sir, not on a school night. Justin 5413 says, can they still move on from Jeff Capel by any chance? No, I think that ship has sailed. You'll have to wait for next year for that to happen. Justin also says, I think a lot of us Pitt fans don't really care. We know next season is hopeless regardless. Like I get that as the prevailing sentiment, Jim. I do. And it's kind of what we talked about right off the bat of like, everybody's leaving right now. Nobody's joining the team. And that's just the timeline. That's how it works. I think it's possible a month from now, when we sit here on May 1st, I can't say that it could be optimism, but maybe people will be, what's the word? If they get a good point guard, they get a good center, maybe one or two other good transfer additions. Intrigued? Intrigued? Is that the best that people will probably be able to muster?
Yeah, and I think that's true of any sense of recruiting. Like you kind of start looking for like the bright spots or what they're seeing or trying to build the vision or whatever. So I think that even happened last year. It's like, okay, Deshaun Jackson, I could talk myself into that. So I think maybe in a month from now, maybe some of our most ardent Pitt basketball supporters on the message board, they'll be able to come up with ways to find things they like about some of the transfers Pitt lands.
Some of them. I mean, there was a fair number of ardent Pitt supporters who could not manufacture enthusiasm or excitement for even Pitt's, handful of late season wins, like the Stanford game. Like nobody was, I think there were some people who still were even not celebrating or enjoying that. When that was a pretty exciting, fun game to watch. So I'm guessing the best that most people will be able to manage is intrigue, interest.
Intrigue's better
morbid,
than this.
Yeah, morbid curiosity, right? Yeah, and it's better than just straight up pessimism. Although I think if any of them like spend too much time thinking about it, they'll just come back to the same conclusion that they've already reached, and there's not much that can be done about that until they actually play games. Mad Dog says, I love being a Pitt fan, but man, it's hard. I just turned 20 and I've only remembered bad basketball and mid football besides the 2021 ACC championship and the 2022-23 basketball season. So if you're 20 in 2026, you were born in 2006. So yeah, you don't remember the Sam Young, DeJuan Blair, Levance Fields teams because you were like 2. You don't remember the Pitt Cincinnati 45-44 game because you were like 3. You don't remember Scotty Reynolds because you were, maybe 3 by that point. Clemson, maybe. Did you watch the Clemson game when you were 10 in 2016, like the football game, or the Penn State game that year when you were 10? I'm trying to think of what good memories Mad Dog might have, outside of the 2021 ACC championship game. You were like 12 when they had like 400 rushing yards against Virginia Tech, right? So maybe you have some memories of that. You have that win over Duke when Justin Champagnie said Pitt is back. You have that game, which taken in a vacuum is pretty great. Yeah, you haven't seen a lot. You've seen a lot of great volleyball though. And right now you're seeing some good baseball. How about Pitt baseball, Jim?
Yeah. How about Pitt baseball?
It's a real thing.
It is a real thing. And, I've started to write about them more. I'm getting more curious. And I told Dom, the SID for baseball, I said, I'm getting ready. I might come down to a game. And he was like, really? Are you going to come? I was like, yeah, I'll come. So I think, I think this second half of the season, I'm pretty intrigued. They're good. They're scoring 10 runs a game. They have one of the best hitters in baseball. They're 20-7. They have meaningful baseball the rest of the way. They're on pretty much every bracketology that I saw today. So,
yep.
And, for the April 1st, this is probably like the best standing Pitt baseball has been in my lifetime that I can remember.
Yeah. And they have Wake Forest at home this weekend, Jim. And Cal at home next weekend. You trying to make the trip for either of those?
Maybe I'll double dip for the spring game. Go straight to Oakland after football.
There you go.
Next weekend.
Okay. Well, that's a 3:00 first pitch on April 11th. Can you make it? We don't even know what time football is starting on the North Shore, do we?
I don't even know where I'm parking. Are they just going to teleport me to Acrisure Stadium?
I don't know.
The logistics are, if maybe I could just catch a ride with Dom across town.
It is funny, like when it was first announced that they weren't going to have fans, and like there was a segment of the fan base that was like, Pitt, you're screwing this up. Why are you making this decision? There has to be room. But now seeing, like, even if you put people in the garage, first of all, I'm not sure you could even get into some of the garage entrances with the way they have everything set up down there. But even if you could put people in the garage, I don't know how they would get over to the stadium. Like, I don't know where you would walk to get around. I mean, it's not just a bunch of ESPN trucks in the parking lot. The stage, like the event is happening in that parking lot right next to the stadium. And there's just not, you could compel everyone to park in the casino or take public transportation. That's okay too. But yeah, I kind of get it. And I'm kind of curious what our setup's going to be like. Oak Original says, greetings from Baghdad by the Bay. So Pitt football couldn't pay to keep top players. Same so far for basketball. Couldn't pay Jeff Capel's buyout. Only one conclusion, Pitt has $0 to buy players. What other explanation? Pitt football, had a limited budget and made strategic decisions with how they deployed that budget. Some you may agree with, some you may not. Basketball, I don't think they've been limited by the budget with the 3 departures thus far. I think, maybe with some guys, either guys that have left or guys that will leave in the future, they may have said, here's the number. Pitt might have said, here's the number. We're not paying you more than this. And if you want more, you're going to have to go somewhere else. But I don't think they were necessarily limited by the budget. I think they were willing to pay Roman Cialepa and had a number that he was comfortable with. You say they couldn't pay Jeff Capel's buyout. I think they could, and I think they were willing to, and they were prepared to. I continue to believe that, and I'm really not going to be swayed off of that opinion. So it's not that Pitt has $0 to buy players. Pitt doesn't have the biggest budget in the ACC or college football or college basketball. That's not news to anyone. But they have enough that they should be able to if they deploy their resources wisely and strategically, they should be able to compete. They should be able to have enough money to make the NCAA tournament. They should be able to have enough money to build a team that can compete in the ACC, for football and basketball. I don't think that's too much to ask. There's 18 teams in the conference. They should have enough money to get themselves into like the top 8 of those 18 in basketball, and they should have enough money to get themselves into the top 6 or 7 of the 17 teams in football. I think they have enough money for that. Do you, Jim?
I do. I think at any time anything happens, it's like Pitt has no money, and like there's some guy that sends me like some weird graphic every time like something bad happens at Pitt. I mean, like Pitt has obviously limited funds. Like we know that. Like they're not going to spend in the top, like most of the Big Ten or the SEC. But I think they're competitive enough. Like I think like the football roster probably has more money invested in it than people realize. Like I think Mason Heinschel probably is making a lot more money than people realize. I think they just come to a certain point with certain players. Like Rasheem Biles, like you're great. You're an awesome player. You're going to play in the NFL as a linebacker, but like there's a certain number where we can only spend on a linebacker, and we could probably offset your production with 3 guys instead of paying you all that money. So I think that's really what it comes down to. Pitt's not going to be able to, those situations with Rasheem Biles, like, yeah, like someone like Texas is going to come calling. That happens. But like, I think for the most part, like if they have a quarterback they like Pitt's usually going to be able to give that quarterback enough money to stick around.
Yeah. Mark showed you says underwhelming transfers from the portal in football. Now big basketball departure. Realistically, can Pitt compete in the future? Yeah, they can. And what we've talked about a million times, Jim, as far as how Pitt can compete. I mean, you just look at the football side. They can compete if they are able to recognize when the window opens, the window to push for a conference championship and a playoff spot opens, and then they're able to capitalize on it. That's how they can compete. Year in, year out, no, they're probably not going to be a consistent playoff contender year in, year out. But every few years, not when the stars align, because it makes it sound like it's more unlikely than I think it is. Every few years, when they've got the right quarterback in place and they've got a couple other key players in place, they can invest some extra resources, bring in the right players around them, and kind of go for it. And this is what I've said like a million times. I'm sure we've talked about it here as well. Like this is probably my biggest gripe with how football approached this offseason is you've got Mason Heinschel. When you've got him back for a second year, you can't assume, all right, his third year is when we're really going to try and go for it, because you can't assume that you're going to have that third year. So you've got to go for it now. You have him coming back. You've got a good quarterback, a franchise quarterback. You need to probably spend beyond your comfort level, put good players around him, put good offensive linemen in front of him, put good skill players around him, pony up the defense, however it needs to be, and go for it. That's how Pitt competes. Basketball is sort of a different story, and I think, it's a different sort of path, but it's the same sort of concept. You have to capitalize when the window is open. And like I said, that's probably my biggest gripe with what they did this offseason. I don't feel like they were really aggressive enough. What they did this offseason for football, Jim, feels like what they've done every other offseason for football. And that's not, to me, being aggressive enough trying to capitalize when the window is open.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But also as a baseline, like when I look at this football roster and, the past couple of years and even dating back to 2021, like how they assembled it, like who the guys are, where like the makeup of this team, it's all very similar. Like this still feels like a Pitt football team, even in the NIL transfer portal, revenue sharing window. Like, this is still a conceivable roster they would have put together before all these breaks would have happened. Like, just talent wise, type of personnel, the type of guys they have, like, it looks like a Pitt football team. And I think that type of Pitt football team can still compete. Like, I know everyone here, when they ask questions, well, can Pitt compete? Can Boston College? Can, like, Wake Forest? Like, people always forget, like, there are a lot of schools in the ACC that are either in worse positions than Pitt or equal positions than Pitt. So, like, yeah, can Pitt compete? Yeah, because they're in the same boat as most of the teams they're competing against.
And that's good. It can keep you ahead of Boston College and Wake Forest, but being aggressive, like you were, and kind of going outside of your comfort zone, that's how you then push yourself into competing with Clemson, Miami, teams at the top of the conference. You know what I mean? That's how you do it. It's just because, let's say they get whatever they get out of Mason Heinzel this year, and they end up going 8-4 or 9-3 or something like that. I think was it last week we went through the schedule and talked ourselves into like we talk ourselves into 9-3, maybe.
I think we just looked at win totals, and I think we took the over. I don't know if we did like the full schedule yet.
But like wherever we got ourselves, it ended up with like 2 conference losses, and I don't think 6-2 is going to get you to the ACC championship game. So, with Mason Heinzel in this group, maybe they can go 8-4 or 9-3, get a decent bowl game, get to 9 wins, 10 wins, whatever it is, but not really be in contention for the ACC championship. That's fine. That's perfectly good season. You win 9 or 10 games, great. But the opportunity was there to be more aggressive, to build around Heinzel, and to potentially not maybe go 8-4 or 9-3, but go 9-3 or 10-2 with only 1 loss in the conference. And, and then you're playing in Charlotte. You're going to Charlotte at 7-1, or it's going to take some serious tiebreakers to keep you out of Charlotte at 7-1 in the conference. Oh, wait, keep talking about 7-1, 8-1, right? Because they play 9 conference games this year. So I still don't even know if I think 7-2 will get you into the conference. I think there's going to be enough 9-0 and 8-1 teams that 7-2. I don't think 2 losses will get you into the conference championship game. So this feels like a team that'll lose at least 2 conference games. And with a more aggressive approach in the portal, with better players brought in, this could have been a team that could have had 1 conference loss, Miami, and then you get a rematch in Charlotte. I really think that you could capitalize on Mason Heinzel and have that kind of success, and it doesn't feel like they did. And that's what's kind of disappointing is, yes, Pitt can compete at for potentially a playoff spot, but they have to be willing to go for it. And it doesn't feel like they were. All right. Chaggy says they had enough money last year and decided to spend it all on centers. Yeah, I can't say Pitt. He's talking about Pitt basketball. I can't say their transfer portal approach last year was good, but we litigated and relitigated that a million times over the last 5 months about the poor decision. But Mad Dog wants to say, will Pitt spend $2 million on 1 player for basketball? I think they will. I think they have to. I think they have to have a $2 million player on this roster. Whether they kept Roman Cialepa or not, they have to bring in a $2 million guy, don't they?
Yeah, I don't who's going to score? They don't.
2 of them.
Yeah,
really?
They need if the budget is what we're hearing that could increase to $8 million. I think it's justifiable to put a lot of that, 50% of it, into 2 really good players. I think they almost have to do that because we saw this past year, they did not have a go-to player. And by the end of the season, on any given night, any one of them could score 15 points. You never knew which one it was going to be. And chances are, if one guy scored 15 this game, they might score 3 the next game. There's no sense of consistency with that group. And they need that.
How much would you invest? Let's say the budget's $8 million. Would you stop it at 4 on the point guard and center, or would you invest 5 out of 8 on 1 point guard and 1 center?
I mean, I think you could justify getting 2, if you're getting 2 high level players, I think you could justify going above 4. I really do. So it's not like I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know what every guy gets and I know how all these budgeting works, but just in the most simplistic way, Like if I have $8 million to spend, I would spend a good chunk of it on a starting center and a starting point guard first and foremost.
And you should be able to get not like, you know, Naismith Award winner or something like that. Like you're not going to get ACC Player of the Year for $2 million, but you can get better than DeMarco Minor and better than Deshaun Jackson / Cam Corrin for $2 million, I think. And with that, you can start building the roster. And so you put $2 million on the point guard, you put $2 million on the center. You've got another $4 million to use on the 3 incoming freshmen, and whatever else. God, that's only 5 guys. So it's gonna take some serious. Mad Dog says he did watch the Clemson game, so shout out to him. That was a fun one to watch. So what's coming up here, Jim? Pitt's got practice tomorrow on the South Side. They have 2 practices next week, and then it will be the spring game or whatever counts for that. Did you see the the NCAA is passing a rule that, you know, the transferring outside of the portal window, this workaround that's sort of been discovered, that if you just leave your school and enroll at another school without ever going into the portal, they're apparently going to crack down on that. Did you see this rule that was passed today?
I did see it. I think somebody, ESPN or something. I didn't really read like the fine print there, but that seems smart.
And like what I like best about it is it's like it's totally provable. You know, like, okay, you were at school A, now you're playing football at school B, you were never in the transfer portal. Boom. Like there's no, like, tampering, I think, is much harder to prove. Like, you know, there's just too many different ways to do it. It's hard to prove tampering. But like the NCAA doesn't have to pull any call logs, doesn't have to like subpoena any phone records or, you know, DMs or anything like that. They could just be like, you were at this school, now you're at this school, you were never in the transfer portal, your coach is going to sit out 50% of the season. And your school is going to pay a fine of 20% of that sports budget. Like, harsh penalties, pretty easily provable action. I like it. And since this is the first year with only one portal window, the NCAA was getting out ahead of this.
Yeah.
They were like, you know what's going to happen at the end of the spring here? A bunch of guys are going to leave their school and just enroll at another school and circumvent the whole process we're trying to put in of keeping it at one transfer portal window so there's a little bit of stability to the rosters. The NCAA got out ahead of it. An enforceable policy with strict penalties. Jim, they did something right.
It's been a few years since you could say that.
I think this should be celebrated. Like it's kind of amazing to me that they did something right. And like I look at it and I'm like, you know, and I mean, someone smarter than me can be like, oh, well, this is how they're going to, you know, this is the loophole that they allowed. But it seems to me like it's a pretty smart approach and like sort of atypical for that particular organization. Let's see. Blackman614 will leave it with this. Says Clemson finished 4-4 in the ACC in 2025. Pitt was 6-2. So if Clemson is the benchmark for Pitt, well, yeah, I mean, I think we still talk about Clemson being at the top of the conference because if we don't, who else is there? It's just Miami, right? We don't talk about Florida State in those terms anymore. We're definitely not going to talk about Virginia and Duke in those terms.
Yeah,
I'm not going to talk about Georgia Tech like that.
Yeah, I think Clemson has, you know, like winning like 9 of like the past like 13 championships. I think they built up the respect card to, you know, when we're talking the class of the conference, we can still say Clemson.
If they go like, I don't know, I forget if they play 8 games or 9 games this year, but if they go 4-4 again or 4-5 or 5-4, then we can start talking a little bit more. But for now, we're still going to hold Clemson as one of the top programs in the league. I think that's fair. All right. It's 9:30, Jim, so we can wrap this thing up. Thank you for your time, as always. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight with the comments and questions. Lots of fun, as it always is. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you never miss any of our Pitt video content. And, yeah, stay tuned to Panther-Lair.com. Jim will have all the coverage from the South Side tomorrow from practice, and we will have lots of coverage as Pitt basketball moves closer to the official opening of the transfer portal. I'm sure the next few days, the next week, the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks will all be very interesting. So thanks again for tuning in tonight. Make sure you like and subscribe. We'll catch up with you tomorrow morning for the Morning Pit right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.